You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. This is December 30th, 2019. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
We made it, Carl. We survived the holidays.
Was it a good time for you? A good week?
I had a blast, I think.
Yeah, it was a fun time with family and friends. Probably. Yeah. We're recording this right after we finished recording last week's episode. Because we're going to have so much fun with family and friends, we won't have time to do an actual show in the meantime.
That's right. So hello from the past.
And hopefully nothing crazy happened in the NHL or the World Juniors or the World of Hockey this week, because we're just not going to cover it for like 2 weeks.
Age so well.
We're going to come back and have so much content to talk about, but it's all going to be old.
That's right.
What would be the craziest thing that you could think would happen when we're not doing an episode?
Oh, some like wild trade, like a Connor McDavid trade.
Or like they sign a new CBA.
Oh, God.
While we're gone.
Yeah.
Like
I'm sure they're all hard at work on the CBA over the holidays.
Yeah. December 25th. I mean, they've already had it done and they're just waiting to announce it. December 25th, they dropped that off for us.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Yeah. And Gary Bettman retired. Man, just all the things happen while we're gone. We're going to the Olympics. But there's been, while there's potential for something crazy to happen in the last week, there's been a lot that's happened in the world of hockey this year. St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Seattle's getting a hockey team. Just so many things, so many fun moments, some good, some bad. And we're here to recap how we enjoyed them with you. But let's start, Nick. This time last year, we also did a recap show. But there was something very different about that recap show. Can you tell what it was?
Well, it almost felt like there was another voice on that show.
Yeah, it was. And it wasn't just like the ones in our heads.
No.
This year, we're down a man.
Yeah.
The retirement of the one and only Joel, the always wonderful Joel, left us this year. Which I always appreciated having him on the show. Certainly miss him. Let's go back and relive Joel's last episode. Let's go one last message. This one came in the form of a DM. We got lots of messages, lots of farewell tweets and whatnot. This one really stood out to me. This comes from friend Ken Callenbach. He said, "Goodbye, Joel. I feel Andrew Raycroft about you leaving the show, but I hope you feel Patrick Waugh in your post Fourth Line podcast life."
Oh, well done.
That was beautiful.
It just warms my heart. Thank you.
And part of what this reminds me of, and I know, Nick, you had this comment when you were on the show, your first time. Joel played a game that you hated called Which Red Wing Do You Hate the Most?
Yes, I remember it.
But the comment you asked me after we were done the show, you said like, did he plan that ahead of time? Did he? No, we've learned Joel doesn't plan ahead of time, but there are many fantastic things. And as we near the end of Joel's final show, I think back to like the things that Joel has brought to this show that he's come up with on the fly, or just like, hey, we should do this. Like the Elimination Station, just finished that segment. That was a thing that was a Joel creation. The Captain Royal Rumble, a Joel creation. Andrew Raycroft to Patrick Waugh, a Joel creation. And like behind the scenes, a lot of what we've done with the website, and from that angle, Joel inspired ideas as well. So when I think of the legacy of where the show was when Joel came on, which was like, 35, 40 episodes in, just finished our first season, floating aimlessly in a hostless wasteland. And Joel came on and joined the show. I personally am thankful that you have made me feel Patrick-Roy about your time on the show. So
it's been a ride. Yeah, we've had it. I think the thing that I like most about is we just had a lot of fun. That's always it's always the one thing that we've always said about the show is that as long as we're having fun, it doesn't really matter. Like, we love the listeners. I thank the listeners. I don't know. This may not be Carl may edit this part out. Who knows? But like, we've always said, like, we do things on the show for us, and then we just say the listeners that like the things that we like will find us. And that's kind of how we've done it. We never really try to cater to a certain thing. We do things that we like to do, and the best thing is we have found people along the way that enjoy the things that we enjoy. And so we don't have to worry about that, because the people that do listen, they appreciate what we've done and we appreciate them. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of there's so many things. I was like, I think the biggest one will be the Royal Rumble. That's the funniest thing that has ever happened on our show. That oh man, the things that went on behind the scenes, before and after that, was just hilarious. And 100% do not regret any of it.
Ever.
Never.
Again, we do what we like, and people who like it will work with us and listen to us. Meh.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny thing. So, but that's what led, I don't know if people realize this, but that's what led to the website. That's what has led to eventually the partnership with the Alberta Podcast Network, partnering. That's what led to Nick. These are all all of the there's a lot of things that come back to that moment on the show that because we were I think there was kind of two ways that we could have gone, and I think we were getting asked to be put into a box because of the partner that we had at the time, and then we said forget the box, and this is where we are today.
Well, it was nice to hear from Joel again, eh?
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, it's been a while, right? That happened a long time, early in 2019.
Yeah.
But it was always good having him on the show.
I always appreciated Joel because he's a good buffer between you and I.
It is nice. I mean, but also is a Leafs fan, so he has some strong opinions about things that everyone has strong opinions about. So
absolutely.
One thing that I can confirm for those who are wondering how Joel is, he is doing great. And Mitch Marner is his least favorite player in the NHL, and it is spectacular.
Well, we could have had some fun with that this year.
I mean, I think he would have just stopped talking about it at some point.
Yeah, I think so too.
Would have not been okay with it. So
I think so too.
I think he might have just left the show anyways.
Just done with it. Well, Joel always, you and I, Carl, we cheer for different teams who hated each other once upon a time. And that's what this next clip is about. Because there's a time last year where our teams, the Detroit Red Wings and the Colorado Avalanche, were playing each other. And they're obviously at very different, parts of their rebuild or Stanley Cup quest, let's call it. And our bet was that the loser of the game would have to watch the winner's last Stanley Cup video live on the podcast. So, of course, we had to watch the Colorado Avalanche 1996 Stanley Cup video, I believe it was. Yeah. That was a fun episode, wasn't it, Carl?
I loved it, Nick.
Yeah. And now we're going to make me relive it, aren't we, Carl?
Yes, we are, Nick.
Okay, great. Well, I hope you all enjoy me getting very upset that they completely ignored the fact that Claude Lemieux destroyed Chris Draper's face in Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals. I'd like to reiterate what I said on this week's podcast. I fully anticipate this video to gloss over the incident that happened in Game 6 of this series.
Well,
so we'll see. We'll see how much they gloss over.
Here's how much I assume they're going to gloss over it. There's approximately 21 minutes left in this video. There's 21 minutes left. We just spent 10 minutes talking about the second round of the playoffs. So to me, that looks like a little bit of this. But anyways, there's way too much Steve Yzerman happening on the screen right now.
I love it.
So let's carry on. No, wrong 19, Nick. Right here.
Oh, please.
I can't tell if you can see it or not.
Patrick Waugh were no strangers to the Red Wings.
Let's talk about something that everybody in this arena is talking about, goaltending, and how about Patrick Waugh? He has.
Remember who chased him out of the net in Montreal?
Like, who was the guy that scored the last goal?
Oh, I don't know. I just know it was the Red Wings who chased him out of that game.
Oh.
That forced the trade.
Detroit was hoping to see them in the playoffs. And I had a chance to...
Shut up.
I appreciate what you did.
The favored Red Wings.
Look at that dirty hit by...
That was a hip check.
A low hit if I've ever seen one.
Please.
But the Avs... They dished
Chris Simon, a guy I regret having on my team. That's a guy that everyone hates, and also I hate having on my team.
They got a
Yell gets to the puck. Yell walked in, put it in front, score! It went off Paul Coffey.
I don't know which Red Wing that is, Paul Coffey. That reaction was amazing.
Like, I've watched the clip and still don't know where Chris Osgood was on that.
Second goal. Detroit coach Scotty Bowman gave his order.
Be easy on Chris Osgood. He should be a Hall of Famer someday.
There are a lot of Red Wings on that team who should be.
The Avs came out.
I'm not sure Chris Osgood's one of them.
But Chris Osgood was up to the challenge.
I don't have a lot of bad takes, Carl. But Chris Osgood to the Hall of Fame is a hill I'm willing to die on.
Did you see who the assistant coach was there?
Where, in Detroit or Colorado?
Colorado.
No.
Future Avalanche coach, Mr. Joel Quenneville.
Hey, there you
the
go.
Red Wings had lost their... and were desperate for a win in Game 2. Unfortunately, they had to face Patrick Waugh again.
We've got Karen's mentioned in the chat how the soundtrack changes at this point in time.
His teammates to deliver
we went from jock jams and lasers to a symphony.
It's so true. Chad's with me. Hashtag Osgood for the Hall.
The city of Denver was lit up.
Carl's like, I'm not commenting on that.
I mean,
but the Detroit Red Wings still had some fight
you
left.
see that? There's a stick to the face.
Oh, please.
Early in game.
This is 1996, Carl. There's no such thing as a penalty for a stick to the face.
Especially in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They only handed out, like, coincidental minors and just all the fighting majors.
It's true.
And some blatant hooks.
And although the Avs...
No boarding penalties, though.
No, none. Everything was a clean hit.
Yeah.
As you'll see soon.
A big hit.
Game 3...
Look at Konstantinov. He's a defenseman. Like, what?
He's got the wheels.
I knew he was going to bounce back. I knew he was going to...
I knew he was going to.
Detroit continued their onslaught. But this night, Patrick Waugh was red hot.
I love watching just the indignant look on Nick's face the entire time. I cannot believe this is happening.
Waugh's inspired play carried over to the offense. Denmark picked up the scoring.
Oh, Adam Deadmarsh. There's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Major Colorado, an extra skater, and Yui Krupp took full advantage.
Yui. Delicious.
Celebrates a big-time goal. It's a power play goal with 7.
Oh, God.
They're ready. It's pumped.
Is that Warren Reichel?
Yeah.
Oh, he runs the Windsor Spitfires now.
Oh, there you go.
The season was in danger of ending prematurely.
You know, we talked about that before the game. I said 71 wins out of 100 isn't going to be good enough because we're going to get knocked out and our season will be over.
That quick, the Red Wings knew that now was the time to show what they were made of. With the full support of their fans and a renewed intensity, they made short work of Colorado in Game 5.
Man, I'm feeling so riled up right now.
I assume they've got to cover this in the next video. There's only 2 minutes left in this part.
I'm telling you, Carl, they're not going to cover it.
In this video? Yeah. We'll find out.
Hockey Hall of Fame.
Now, at this point, we're just anxiously awaiting Game 6. Like, both of us don't.
Stuck in it.
Just a confident guy, and
it's the face of a future leader right there.
Joe Sakic looks like he just rolled in from the bar last night.
That's probably it.
Detroit's assault on Law continued.
What do you mean I have an interview?
You want to talk to me?
Can't Patrick just do it? The guy loves to talk.
Yeah.
Holding the Red Wings at bay, Mark Crawford and his team to turn up the pressure, and the Avalanche superstars responded.
There we go.
He had a wicked shot, eh?
It was good. Well, that's why everyone uses the old Sakic sticks now, to this day.
The Avalanche had done what to be impossible. Upsetting the Red Wings in 6 games, Colorado earned the right to play.
There we go. The series done.
Are you kidding me? Pause this video right now. He broke 33 bones in that man's face. And they didn't even show it.
Show what, Nick?
They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing when they did this. They knew what he did was wrong. And they ignored it. It's disgusted. I am disgusted.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is... Oh, Carl. Oh, it's getting hot in here. I am disgusted.
It is interesting, the angle that you take when you make certain videos. You know what? I look forward to watching the President's Trophy Championship video that the Red Wings put out this season to see their angle on it.
You know what, Carl? Don't even... Whew. Let's push play on the video. Let's get through the rest of this, baby.
All right.
Oh, my God. I can't believe they didn't even show it.
You know, you mentioned that our teams are at like different points in our Stanley Cup quests. I almost, at this point, and I did feel a little bit bad last year, but I'm like it's not fair. Next time we have this, we need to like you get like a 1-goal advantage.
Yeah. Win by 2 or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. Well, before we get to the rest of the show, one great thing about this year has been all the fantastic things happening at the Alberta Podcast Network, Nick. And what that would not happen without the fine folks at ATB. ATB Financial is the official sponsor of the Alberta Podcast Network, and we are very grateful for what they do for helping this show as well as all the other shows on the network. Do us a favor. I know we say it almost every week, but head to atb.com and check out what they have because they do a lot for this show, for the network, and just as a thank you for us, at least check them out and see what they have for you. atb.com. And if you atb.com/listens, they want to hear what you have to say. Let them know. See what happens. It could lead to a very great 2019 for you. And not just could, will. It wasn't all bad for the Detroit Red Wings in 2019, though, was it, Nick?
No, there were some nice things that happened.
I mean, they cannot see, but you have a very festive Detroit Red Wings shirt on right now. So
it's my ugly Christmas Red Wings sweater.
And it's nice. I like it.
Thank you.
But what would you say is your highlight in 2019 for the Red Wings?
Well, for a team that doesn't have a lot of highlights right now, there was one very big thing that happened this year, and it didn't even happen during hockey time. Steve Yzerman came home this offseason, the one and only, the captain, number 19, back to Detroit. Ken Holland steps aside, gives Yzerman the team, and he's going to general manage us to another Stanley Cup soon. That's what happened.
And you had quite the reaction when he came back.
I was so excited. I had to sing about it.
Nick has, for some reason, you're excited this week. I don't know why, but...
Well, Carl, Friday morning, Hockey Town woke up to some very exciting news. And I don't know about you, but when I'm happy, I like to sing. So I wrote this song. It's the 1-9 in the 3-1-3. S to the T to the E-V-I-E. Turn off the car, give him the key. The captain's gonna lead us back to victory like he did in 96, in double OT, and again in 97 when he kissed Stanley. 98 and 02, there was never any doubt. Even with no knees, he grinded it out. So when he left, it was a real sad day, but he went and built a winner out in Tampa Bay. Hey, Hockey Town, the last few years you've been looking down, but the captain's back where he's meant to be. So let's all say, welcome home, Stevie. Do, 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 do. When he left his role in Tampa Bay, everybody hoped that we'd see this day. 9 years ago, he went away, but his home is Detroit. Now he's here to stay. Tear it all down, build it back up, take us all the way to the Stanley Cup. You did it back then, you can do it now. You're the king of this city, and here's your crown. Manage this salary cap to perfection. Point this ship in the right direction. It may be rough and it may take long, but you're back home now where you belong. Hey, Hockey Town, the last few years you've been looking down, but the captain's back where he's meant to be. So let's all say, welcome home, CV. Hey, Hockey Town, the last few years you've been looking down, but the captain's back where he's meant to be. So let's all say, welcome home, Stevie.
Wow. So I guess that's your hard-hitting analysis.
Carl, my hard-hitting analysis is I'm so happy.
Aside from winning the Stanley Cup, where does this place on the scale of joy?
Oh, for me as a Red Wings fan, there's winning the Stanley Cup. There's seeing Henrik Zetterberg smile. And then there's Steve Yzerman coming home to lead us back to greatness.
Yeah, it's a big day. One I assume you saw coming. We've talked about it before. But did you think that it would actually happen?
I did. I didn't think it would happen so soon. Like, I kind of figured his contract ran like July to June 30th, so I didn't think we'd see anything until July. I think there was a little bit of doubt with Ken Holland and whether or not he was ready to step down, but obviously he was, because he orchestrated this whole thing.
Yeah, which is honestly his best move he's arguably ever made as general manager, is bringing in a replacement general manager.
Yeah, Ken Holland, he's got a bit of a bad rap right now for the last few years, but he's made a lot of great moves. Pre-salary cap, but he's made a lot of really good moves. I don't know if this would rank up there with his great moves, but I think that I'm really impressed with the amount of self-awareness that he had, and just knowing that the team, the fans, the organization needed this to happen right now. And he took one for the team and stepped aside.
So so what exactly is his role? Because he's still with the team as like one of those figurehead type roles, or?
Yeah, he's, I think, excuse me. I'm not used to singing that much. I think
your emotions are getting the best of you.
They are.
The
Yeah.
sniffles, it's happening. It's fine.
Yeah. His title, I believe, is Senior Vice President of Hockey, something or other. I don't know. I think he's just kind of moving into one of those Jim Devolato roles where he's around the office and he advises, and I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Very exciting times. What do you expect? Do you expect like a change in direction for the Red Wings now with Stevie there? Because I think what he did best in Tampa was handling the salary cap, which is what the Red Wings would need best right now, right? They're not in the best of salary cap situations. There's no denying that. Do you expect him to come in and make some aggressive moves to shed some of that in ways like he did in Tampa? Or just kind of come in and work on building some pieces around him, working on scouting? Because they're going to be drafting high this year. There's not much he can do for scouting this year, but really finding out what's available at that spot, a draft strategy moving forward, and then seeing what else to do.
Yeah. He, in his press conference, his big theme was this is going to take time. Like, temper your expectations, temper your excitement, because this is going to take time to rebuild properly. But that being said, if you look at when he started with Tampa, he, I believe, was hired in late May, and he had made 4 trades before the next season had started. So over the course of summer, he made 4 trades. He's not someone who sits back and waits for things to sort themselves out. He acts. He's not afraid to make tough decisions and take action. So yeah, I am expecting some big moves this offseason. Obviously, right now is draft time. You focus on the draft. You get through those 2 days. And then from there, you work on fixing the defense, and you work on some of those albatross contracts that you've inherited from your predecessor.
So, Nick, congratulations on Steve Yzerman coming back to the Red Wings. Obviously exciting. And the captain of my team, while your team was captained by Steve Yzerman, Joe Sakic, is general manager of the Avalanche now. So we had dueling captains. Now we have dueling general managers. And mine made a move earlier this year that I was incredibly unsettled by. The Nazem Kadri Tyson Barrie trade on July 1st, free agency day, left me a little rattled.
And
I think I've turned a corner on it. So let's take a quick listen to how I felt about this on July 1st. Oh, it has been a frantic last 24 to 48 hours in the world of the NHL.
I need to ask you a question, Carl.
Okay.
Sincerely, I want you to tell me, how are you doing?
You know what, Nick? I was doing great up until late yesterday afternoon.
Oh, Carl, are you really that upset about it?
I am legitimately, I am legitimately upset about this Tyson Barrie trade that we have going on our hands here. Yeah.
Why? Okay, should we give the full details of the trade first?
Sure, we can start there. For those who did not see, then there were a number of trades that have happened in the last 24, 48 hours. We'll get into many trades. We'll get into tons of signings. We have a jam-packed show as we go through everything that happened with NHL free agency. Not even everything. There's a lot that's not going to be talked about today.
So much, but I'm so excited to talk about what we are going to talk about.
Yeah, we've got a list with at least like 15 topics on it. We're going to try to get to all of them. I guess before we get into that,
okay,
let's mention ATB, this official sponsor of the Alberta Podcast Network. They are fantastic, and you should check them out. They support hockey in your community, and I know it's summer, and a lot of people's minds aren't thinking grassroots hockey, but ATB is, because they're making plans to make things great for the summer or for the fall, and making that happen. So they put on a lot of camps, they sponsor programs, and when you choose them as your bank, you're being a part of that. So head to atb.com. atb.com/hockey is a great place to head to as well. Do that. You will not regret it. Speaking of regrets,
what a segue.
Tyson Barrie, Alexander Kerfoot, a 6th-round pick for Nazem Kadri, Kalle Rosen, and a 3rd-round pick.
Should Joe Sakic be regretful?
So here's where I stand on this, Nick.
Okay.
I have, for a few years now, actually, thought to myself, and I've probably even said it on this show, that a Nazem Kadri for Tyson Barrie trade makes a ton of sense for both teams.
Okay.
Right? And it still does, right?
Yes.
It did. It does. They did the trade. So Tyson Barrie, half of his salary is retained. So Toronto actually, they saved $2.5 million against the cap with this trade, which I guess doesn't take into account the pending Alexander Kerfoot signing. He's a restricted free agent, so they got to sign him. I'm, you know what? Now that I think about, I'd love it if Colorado offer sheeted him. Do that.
That would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be fantastic? Do that. Okay, there's one way that Joe Sakic can make me smile with this trade.
I mean, someone needs to give the Leafs a hard time at some point.
Like, please offer sheet Kerfoot. It wouldn't even need to be for that much, right? What they'd be getting back, just give them back that 3rd, essentially. Do that, please. So much do that. Nonetheless, so the Leafs come out about even. But here's the thing, Nick. I love me some Tyson Barrie.
He's a great player.
He's a fantastic player. And I know, and then I've had Leafs fans aplenty telling me why I should love Nazem Kadri.
You should love Nazem Kadri.
He's good. He's going to be a significant upgrade at center. As much as, all I'll say about this trade, I'm sad to see Carl Soderberg go. I'm not super sad to stop paying him $4 million, right? Or I guess $4.75 million. That's a lot of money. We will actually be paying Nazem Kadri $250,000 less, and he's noticeably better.
He may actually be on the best contract in the league. One of the best contracts in the league. He's not on the best, but
yeah,
it's up there.
$4.5 million for 3 more years. Fantastic. Love that.
Yeah.
So that's great. However, Tyson Barrie has noticeably outperformed Nazem Kadri the last 2 seasons. Now, granted, last year, Kadri took on a much more different role with the Leafs than he did the years before.
Okay.
Right? He's now 3rd line, right? Tavares, Matthews. He's the 3rd line center. He's got a different role and played a little bit more shutdown than he would have otherwise. Tyson Barrie also managed to shut players down, and he did that just by scoring, right? By having the puck a lot, he was able to shut down teams' top lines. And so I look at this, I'm like, we've got Tyson Barrie, who is a phenomenal player offensively. Sure, we've got a plethora of defensemen. We've got some good ones coming, but Tyson Barrie is not even arguably. Tyson Barrie was the Avalanche's best defenseman this last season, and it wasn't super close. And so we've traded our best defenseman. We've got Eric Johnson, Ian Cole are both going to be hurt to start the season. So we're literally putting all of our eggs in the basket of these young guys. And while it's great to get a good second line center, and I would even, as a second liner, I would even put Kadri as a great choice as a second line center. But to trade your number 1 defenseman, it doesn't excite me for this season. Sure, once Tyson Barrie would have inevitably left after this season, and we've got Kadri back, but come on, there is no way that this makes the Avalanche better this season.
Well, so that was my question, because I don't think this is about just this season. This is more of a long-term play. Because would Tyson Barrie have re-signed with the Avalanche at the end of the season?
Probably not.
So they probably would have been shopping him at the deadline. And you're not going to get a return this good at the deadline for Tyson Barrie. So this is probably best in a Tyson Barrie trade, best case scenario. Now, would it have been a better option to hold on to him and do the quote unquote own rental thing going into the playoffs? I don't know, but then you lose him for nothing.
Yeah. And And so if the Avalanche are at that point, because I do think that this team is, if they play like they did last year, obviously making the second round of the playoffs, fantastic. They're ready to make a move, but it's just frustrating. I never like giving up the best player in a trade, even if, sure, long term, great. Like 2-3 years down the road, this will be a fantastic trade. Cal Rosen, not sold on him. I mean, the Leafs weren't sold on him being part of their defense core, and theirs was much worse than the Avalanche.
Yeah. I think that he'll be a fine third pairing defenseman. And I think you guys will be totally fine in your top four. Like Sam Girard is 20 years old, and
he'll be 21.
He had almost 30 points last year. Like, assuming he takes another step this year and then another step, like he's young, so he's going to keep improving. Cale Makar looked really good, and that was in the playoffs, so he's going to keep improving. And then you guys just picked up Bowen Byram. Like, long term, Avalanche on defense are going to be fine. I think that the trade benefits both teams in that it fills a hole for you guys in the top six. And Toronto is very obviously weakest at defense. Now, I think it fills Toronto's hole better than it does yours, but you got to give a little in these trades too. I think it's a fair trade. I think it's an exciting trade. It's a good trade all around, but I do think that Toronto wins more just because they needed a top four defenseman much more than you needed a second pairing center.
There you go. I do feel a little bit differently now than I did back then, Nick.
As you should.
Yeah, probably should. Our summer series this year, we always do a fun series in the summer, and this one was maybe my favorite one we've done so far. We looked back at the history of hockey. Did you enjoy it?
We learned a lot this summer.
It was incredibly educational.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. It's not always my favorite thing to do, learn.
Yeah, but here we are. And what was great about it is that we learned from some very smart people. Like, sure, we could look it up on do our own research, but there are some people who've done it themselves and do great jobs at it.
Yeah, and they were happy to come on and talk to us about it. We're very grateful for that.
Absolutely. So let's go to some of those. First up, Mike Committo with some interesting fact about a Sudbury Wolf. Welcome back, everyone. We are very excited to have with us today Mike Committo, author of the book Hockey 365, historian of the Sudbury Wolves, many other things. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So as we kind of wrap up our summer looking at hockey history, we've touched on what, Nick, half dozen, 10 different topics this summer?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about hockey history. And now we have a real historian on.
We figured, you know what? We won't do that at the middle or the beginning. We'll wait till the end. It's very excited to have you here today. What exactly is it that a hockey historian does? Because I know it's probably not what Nick and I have done this summer.
Well, that's the thing is I didn't know about these hardcore hockey history segments you guys were doing until Nick invited me on. So now I've got a lot of listening and catching up to do, which is great though, because I'm always looking for new stuff to listen to on the way to work or on the run or on a run. So I will definitely go back and check out all those segments. But no, I appreciate you guys having me on to kind of close out the hockey history this summer. I think for me, what a hockey historian does is really not that much different from any kind of what any historian does. And so, again, the duty of a hockey historian or an environmental historian, which is what I was in a past life, we can get into that a little bit later. We don't have to get into that. The historian's job is to just study, analyze the past, and interpret what had happened in the past. On the hockey history level, though, I think that, in my position with the Wolves or when I'm doing other hockey history writing is, especially with the fan base, is to try to bridge the gap between different eras of fans. If you look at the Sudbury Wolves, this is a team that's been in the OHL now for almost 50 years. You've got the fans that remember, the heyday with Mike Foligno and Randy Carlyle and Ron Duguay and all those guys. And then now you've got some, the fans in the middle, And then the new fans that are coming out in the new era, we've had a little bit of a resurgence the last year or so with, Jukka-Pekka Luukkonen and Quinton Byfield, especially this year going into his draft year. So like my job, or at least the way I try to conceptualize my job, is to tell stories that'll try to link together those different generations of fans. And so trying to celebrate the team's past, what it's done, in the past, and kind of celebrate its heritage, but also at the same time tell stories that will kind of draw the attention back to what's happening on the ice. And so obviously, the Wolves had a great season last year, so it's really easy, I think, as a historian, to tell those stories when the team is doing well. It's obviously a little more challenging, to be working with a club when the product on the ice is suffering a little bit, because again, people don't necessarily want to look at the good old days. They want to see, well, what are you doing for me lately, right? But for me, I've been fortunate with my role with the team in the last year. That obviously was a great season last year, hoping to build on that this year and hopefully to tie in some more of those stories from the past. I think one of the things that if people had followed my role with the Wolves last year, I try to just kind of tell the stories that connect with fans from across generations. But this year, I'll kind of be taking not a step back, but we're going to be focusing more on core projects. So one of the things that the team wants to do in the next few years, while they're still in the old arena downtown, is to retire a few more numbers. And so those are some projects that I'm going to be working with the team on, who should be going up to the rafters, engaging with the fans on who they want to see go up there. How are we going to do that? Tell some stories around that whole thing, going back and looking at that player's past, and getting that kind of look back. And then obviously, as I mentioned earlier, with Byfield going into his draft year, I think it'd be great to kind of profile him and, do a little bit of his history, where he came from, talk to some people that are close with him and really kind of set things up for what could hopefully be the highest Wolves player ever to be drafted to the NHL.
So, Mike, I want to get into how you got that job, but you mentioned the jersey retirement, and I'm kind of curious, like, how else does what you do as a historian like manifest itself with the fans? Like, what you talk about interacting with the fans? Are you talking about like, writing blog posts or articles? Are you talking about like an area in the arena where you have stuff on display? Like, how does that kind of come to life?
Yeah, so the team doesn't necessarily have an area in the arena where we kind of showcase the team's history. That would be something that I would like to do at some point. It's just a matter of, finding the time and I think seeing what that would look like. But ultimately, right now, the interaction, the way that I engage with the fans is, I try to do it on social media and try to source some ideas from them on what they want to see. And then primarily, it's through those articles that live on the team's website. So again, kind of seeing who would we want to kind of showcase. And I think that's the other thing, that's the other duty of the historian too, is obviously not only just engaging with the fans, which is a huge reason why, you have those historians to celebrate the team's heritage, but it's also to engage with the alumni. And I think that at the OHL level, where you have such high turnover, where you have guys that are, maybe only there for a half season, or they're there for 2 years, 3 years, and then they're gone. And not all of them go on to have professional hockey careers. Some of them go on to play CIS hockey. Some of them go over to play in Europe, but they don't all go on to have NHL careers. And so I think it's important for me, as a team historian for an OHL club, is to celebrate those players that don't all go on to have hockey careers, because they go on to contribute to society in different ways. And I think it's important to kind of celebrate what they did with the club, because even though they may not have gone on to have an all-star NHL career, they might have been a part of huge moments for the club locally, and the fans don't forget that. And so I think it's important that we remember those guys as well and highlight their stories and, kind of see where they're at right now. Because again, with all of that turnover, it's kind of hard to keep tabs on all those players at the junior level. And so I think that's especially, and you kind of see that at the NHL level, where I think a lot of the historical outreach that teams do is ultimately kind of paired with an alumni group, and to kind of because obviously the two go hand in hand.
Yeah. And you mentioned with the new arena, I got to experience here in Calgary when they closed down the Corral, not where the Hitmen currently play, but where they used to play, where the Flames used to play, and kind of celebrating that history, really seeing how well the fans connect with that. That was a sold out game in there, ton of fun, all around refocused on the history of the Hitmen. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for you next year with the Wolves moving to a new arena.
Well, it won't be next year. It's probably the Wolves will be in the downtown arena for at least 3 more years. There's a bit of some controversy here locally about the new placement of the arena. So probably I would say 4 or 5 years from now. But that will be a fun exercise, is to take, I think, the opportunity to sell to what there's a lot of history in that old barn downtown. It was built in 1951, so it's been there for quite a while. There's a lot of hockey history in there outside of the Wolves as well, right? So I think there's a great opportunity to take the history from that old arena and bring it to the new arena whenever that happens, and kind of hopefully do some more interactive displays and things like that. Also, I think the big challenge for the team is just there's certainly a campy, kitschy vibe that you get if you go to the Sudbury Arena. If you guys have ever been there, and for the listeners that have been there or haven't been there, they've got this taxidermic wolf that they have basically on a clothesline. Whenever the Wolves score, this thing kind of just goes right out across the ice, and it goes further out. It just basically stops over top of the visitors' bench and just kind of taunts them, and then they retract it and it goes back into the corner of the arena. It's been there since basically since the team kind of started in the 70s. It used to be on a manual clothesline, and somebody would sit in the corner in a lawn chair, and every time they would score, he would have to get up and kind of shimmy it across the ice and then bring it back. Now it's automated. They have it on a button, but it's stuff like that where you hope that the team embraces that, though, even though it's going to be a state-of-the-art brand new facility in 2022 or 23, that they bring that old wolf with them, because so much of I think when you go to the Sudbury Arena for the first time and you see your first Wolves game, that's the draw. That's the thing that people remember, is that stuffed wolf in the rafters.
I don't even know what to say about that. I've never heard anything like that before.
Oh, you got to check out a game. It's like that's every. I always say that when you see kids go to the Wolves game for the first time, that's always the draw. Is you see them looking up at that thing as it comes out across the ice. And I mean, even me, I've been there. I can't even count how many times I've seen a Wolves game, and it still doesn't lose its charm. At least for me personally, that's the highlight of the game is checking out that thing. And obviously that means the Wolves are scoring, so that's a good sign.
That's hilarious.
Well, and hopefully, like you said, hopefully that makes its way to the new arena, because I have seen it, and it is something to behold.
Yeah, I've made it clear, in those discussions that that's something that has to go. Not that I have a lot of pull or sway in the organization, but obviously that would be the hill that I die on. That raggedy old wolf has to go to the new arena.
Well, thanks again to Mike for coming on. That was fantastic. And our next one is one that hits a little close to home for you, Nick.
Yeah, so a very great hockey documentary was released this year called The Russian Five, and it was about how the Detroit Red Wings managed to bring together 5 Russian players in the 90s to come and play the Russian style of hockey together, and they ended up winning a Stanley Cup with the Red Wings in 97 and a repeat one in 98. And Joshua Riehl came on and told us the story of the Russian Five and the movie and how it all came together.
Welcome back, everyone. Like we mentioned, we have Joshua Riehl with us today, director of the Russian Five film. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Привет, Joshua. Dobro podlovla na nasz podcast. You don't have to answer that.
My Russian is non-existent.
Yeah, my Russian is Google Russian.
Slava Fetisov gave me some crap about that, and Russia said I have to learn it before the next time I see him, which is going to be September, so I don't have much time.
Oh, that's pretty crazy, getting a direct order from Slava Fetisov like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When Papa Bear tells you to do something, you should probably do it.
Yeah, you better get in those language classes.
Well, Duolingo, here I come.
That's fantastic. So the Russian Five, can you just let us know, for those who are not aware, who the Russian Five are and why there's a documentary about them?
Yeah, so the Russian Five, in order of how they came to, I guess, the NHL was, Slava Fetisov, Igor Larionov, Sergei Fedorov, Vladimir Konstantinov, and Slava Kozlov. And, the 5 they were the first all 5-man Russian unit to play together in the NHL, thanks in most to Scotty Bowman's sort of genius awareness to realize, when he came to Detroit in 93, 94, they had Sergei, they had Vladdy, they had Kazi, but they were still, Wings as an organization, as a team, were taking their growing pains and their lumps. And, Scotty knew that guys like Slava and Igor would bring some certain intangibles to the locker room. And so first came Slava, and, they wanted that veteran leadership on the blue line, but someone who could really kind of push Sergei to be the best all the time, and that was Slava. And so they had 4, and then, Slava started kind of whispering in Scotty's ear, Igor's out there. And the Red Wings had a surplus of wingers, and Scotty wanted a more defensive-minded center. And so, about 6 games into the season in 95-96, he made a trade that, was not initially accepted well in Detroit, which was to trade Ray Shepherd, a 40, 50 goal scorer, for Igor Larionov, who at that time I believe was like 36 years old, kind of considered on the downside of his career. But what Scotty knew was that the way these Russians played the game of hockey back in the Soviet Union was as a consistent 5-man group, right? So in the NHL, you'll have your forward lines always stay together, and they'll rotate out, and maybe they'll end up with the same D pair, maybe not. But in the Soviet Union, it was those 5 guys played together all the time, which created a chemistry, which created a sense of knowing where each other would be. So these 5 guys get thrown on the ice in Calgary. It was October 27th, 1995, in Calgary, and the Russian 5 dominated. The Wings held Calgary to 8 shots in their own home building. I think the Russian 5 themselves had like 13 shots on goal. So if you think about it, the one line outshot the entire Calgary Flames team. They accounted for 2 of the 3 goals the Wings scored that night. And really, it was an eye-opening moment for the NHL. And, that really set the Wings off on that torrent pace where they set the league record of wins that would, finally be tied by Tampa Bay all these years later this season. But, then they'd run into Colorado. And so that kind of, what's at heart of the documentary, the story of the Russian 5.
That's awesome. Kind of low key, awesome part of that story is how Scotty Bowman just had complete control of that roster and could make trades.
Oh yeah.
As the head coach.
Well, I mean, that was part of the thing of, when Jim Devellano brought him in. And, they had Brian Murray, who was a great guy, and he was a good coach for young guys. But, the knock on Brian Murray was that he never was able to get the job done when he was in Washington before he comes to Detroit. And so, Mike Ilitch wanted someone who had gotten the job done, and there's no one in the NHL that was more than Scotty Bowman, right? So part of bringing him in was to give him some roster control. And, so Scotty was the one who really went to Jimmy Devellano and was like, I want to trade a 3rd-round pick for Slava Fetisov to New Jersey in 95. And, we forget that when that trade happened, Slava was a healthy scratch. He was not playing. He was sitting up in the press box. And, luckily for all of us, Lou Lamoriello really liked Slava as a person, as a human. And so he thought, I want to give this guy a chance to maybe, play a couple more shifts in the NHL and go to Detroit where, he'd be with some other Russians. No, I don't think anyone expected Slava to play 3 more seasons at that point because of his age, but, he did. And he was really, Slava was really kind of the heart of the 98 season where, he was the guy that was in the limo accident with Vladdy. He survived it. He was the one who really kind of helped throw the team on his back and say, hey, we're going to do this. And, his leadership is really unheralded. And, I mean, the only parallel that I can think of in hockey that I know of is Steve Yzerman. And so, when you have 2 guys who are basically the greatest captains of their era ever on your team, that's a lot of leadership. And Scotty knew that was kind of the key to getting them over the hump, was just kind of having that leadership with those intangibles,
Yeah, definitely. And as you mentioned, setting the record there, big changes in Detroit that were able to really set them forward. So let's get in before we, lose focus on the documentary. I want to get into a lot of the history, but before that, if someone has not had the opportunity to see the Russian 5 documentary that you made, what kind of areas does it focus on?
So the film really kind of starts in 1982 when Mike Ilitch buys what was commonly referred to as the Dead Wings, right? Detroit Red Wings were horrible. The city of Detroit was, in a really bad place, but Mike Ilitch wanted to, bring some sort of joy to the city. So they bought the Wings and they start this long process. And so that's where it starts, but we really get into it in 89 when the Wings go to the draft and there's some debate. there's a superstar kid sitting there, but he's in the Russian system, and they don't know if they'll ever get him. The Red Wings saw what Slava and Igor went through when they were drafted by New Jersey and Vancouver, respectively, which, you know, it took them, those guys, maybe like 4 or 5 years, and all of this agreements that the Soviets backed out on, and then it was just a big mess for those franchises to finally get those players, and they came at 30 years old. So there's some hesitation, but if Sergei Fedorov's there on the board in the 4th round, and Jim Devellano scouts are telling him, this guy's a superstar. And the Red Wings had something that not a lot of other teams had, which was that they had an owner who was willing to do literally whatever it took to turn the team around. So, you know, Mike Ilitch gave Jim Devellano permission to draft these guys, and then he gave Jim Lights and Nick Polano, sort of the guys who were the point men, whatever they needed, you know, and that, in which case it was a lot of loose cash, right, for bribes and whatnot to get Fedorov and then Konstantinov and then later on Kozlov over. So the film takes you through that journey of the defections and bringing those guys over. And then we get into the story that I just talked about, which is, you know, Scotty comes in, brings in Slava, brings in Igor. The Russian Five assemble. They dominate the league, but they're running in Colorado. And then the film goes from, all right, well, how do they get back on their feet? How do they get back to the finals and win? And we get into that. And we get into how, you know, really the Russians off the ice had just as much impact on the ice as that team finally winning their first Stanley Cup in 42 years. So, you know, and then we cover what happened after the first Cup in 42 years, you know, the tragic limo accident and the, you know, bittersweet victory in 98. So that's kind of the movie in a nutshell.
And I saw it here in Toronto. You really did a wonderful job pulling it all together. Especially, you know, when you're telling the story of the defections, the film creates this amazing, like back alley, dark hallway ambiance. It's like a spy movie almost, right? On how they're talking to these players and trying to convince them to come over. Like there's no official channels whatsoever. And
you know, I was going to say there were some official channels. That story got kind of left in the cutting room floor because it was long and involved. But really, what it was is every time they tried to go through the official channels, the Russians would say, "They're never coming. No matter how much money you give us or offer us, they're not coming." And so Jim Lights just used that, more determined to find a way to get them out the other way through the back door.
Yeah, but, and see, that's, you know, like that. This part of hockey history about bringing the Russians over is so fascinating to me because it kind of had some political ramifications that transcended hockey, right? Like there was more going on here than just hockey.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact is that you have at that moment in time, the Soviet Union is starting to be chipped away. And so that kind of strong hold that the coach Viktor Tikhonov and the Russian Red Army had on players like Fetisov and Larionov, they're starting to lose that grip, right? And that's part of it. But the other part is that guys like Sergei and Vladdy and other guys like Alex McGillney or Pavel Bure saw what Tikhonov and the Russian system put guys like Larionov and Fetisov through. And these are the legends, right? These are the guys who we're talking Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson of Russian hockey. And Tikhonov's still not letting them leave for freedom until they're 30. So these young guys said, we don't want that. We want to go to America where we have the freedom to do whatever we want after practice. We don't have to live in a military barracks, which is what the Red Army hockey team had to do for 11 months out of the year. They were sequestered away from their families. These guys wanted the taste of freedom that they could have in America that they got little glimpses of when they would do international tournaments and travel with the Red Army team. So you have this moment in history where, you know, this empire is crumbling, and the people are finally getting an opportunity to sneak out, and the Red Wings saw that. And you know, in the film we talk about how, you know, Vladdy actually left the Soviet Union, and it was the Soviet Union when he left, and weeks later it would be the Russian Federation, because he literally had to escape as the country was dissolving. Which is really fascinating to me. And you know, it's one of the reasons why this story will never be replicated, because the world that they existed in doesn't exist anymore. It's changed planet.
Thanks again, Joshua, for coming on. very interesting and a great documentary for sure.
Yeah, would watch again.
Yeah, and if we said it then, if you haven't watched it, go do it. Even with your family, right? In between when the World Junior Games end at 4:00 in the afternoon this holiday season, you can watch those at night. We had one more thing that I enjoyed from the summer, and that was one that was not a guest. It was me and you doing our own deep dive research into the Wayne Gretzky Trade Tree.
What a wormhole that was.
Turns out there was a lot. When you trade when Connor McDavid gets traded in between today and when this episode comes out, we'll be looking at that trade tree in 10 years.
That's right.
But we only have the Gretzky one right now. Let's recap some of what we discovered about the Wayne Gretzky Trade Tree.
Little Triple H. It's all about the game and how you play it. All about control, if you could take it. That was his intro music in WWE.
There it is.
Might still be.
Who knows? So this week is something that could end us up down a rabbit hole that every week since the main part of hockey's ended, we were like, you know what? We're going to get this show in under an hour. This is one that if we let it, it could take us. We could be here for another hour or two.
Yeah.
Where we go. So we're going to try to control ourselves. But there are some very interesting connections we have here. We are doing, we're going through a trade tree tonight, folks. We're going down all the branches of what I would say is it's the biggest trade in NHL history, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely one of them.
Yeah. I mean, like you've got Phil Kessel, Taylor Hall, and Wayne Gretzky are everyone's three trades that will forever be remembered.
Well, I think two of those suffer from recency bias.
I mean, there's nothing recency biased about Phil Kessel going to Arizona. I don't know what you're talking about.
Good point.
Yeah, we're going through the Wayne Gretzky trade, which, yeah, definitely one of the biggest trades in league history. Him going from the Los Angeles Kings to not
other way around.
Not the Los Angeles and St. Louis trade. That's not the one we're talking about. We're talking about Edmonton to LA.
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky. So to start, Wayne Gretzky, Mike Krushelnyski,
yeah.
Where's he from? That's where this trade tree, we're going to go through the entire tree and just guess where people are from.
Mike Krushelnyski? Where's he from? Oh, man. His first name's Mike. This is a curveball.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he is Canadian.
Yeah. Can you guess what part of Canada he is born?
I'm going to say he was born in Toronto.
It is Montreal, as we all would have assumed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That very French name must have come from Montreal.
Yeah. Anyways, Gretzky, Crush, and Marty McSorley headed to Edmonton for Jimmy Carlson, Martin Gélina, 3 first-round picks, and the main reason of the trade, $15 million.
It's a lot of money for a player in 1988.
Yeah, so a lot of this episode is actually us tracing this money. This is the trade tree. We're just going to figure out where that money went and what it got spent on.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
I don't have the answers to that question.
Oh, you don't?
Oh, I wish I did.
I thought we were going to do some sort of like forensic files, like follow the money.
Like I said, I wish we could.
Who knows how the Oilers spent that money?
Terribly. But
yeah, it's gone.
Because it gets very interesting very quickly. So we'll start with Jimmy Carlson. He's a player that went to Edmonton the other way. He was coming off fantastic seasons. He had, at 19 years old, had 107 points for the Kings. The next year, 100 points in his debut season with the Oilers. At 20 years old, you're like, man, this Jimmy Carson kid is going to be great. That was the end of him being great. That was his peak. After that, his best season was 73 points. He was traded. He played 84 games with the Oilers, was then traded to the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh.
Do you recall this trade at all?
I don't.
Okay. Well, he was traded with Kevin McClelland and a fifth rounder for Peter Klima, Joe Murphy, Adam Graves, and Jeff Sharples.
Okay. Now that rings some bells.
Okay. Here's another one that's going to start to ring some more bells, because he was then traded after having a mediocre season. I mean, halfway through his next best season, he was traded to LA for a player that, will become more well known. And when we get into this branch, it could be interesting, or will be interesting, of how he ends up there. So going back to Detroit for him, Paul Coffey, Sylvain Couturier, and Jim Hiller. So if you're wondering how Paul Coffey started making the rounds, 1993, Paul Coffey ended up in Detroit, traded for Jimmy Carson.
Wait, Paul Coffey was in LA?
Yes.
So at some point, the Oilers traded him to LA as well.
He ended up in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh moved him on to LA.
Oh.
So he was traded for Craig Simpson, Dave Hanna, Mo Mantha. Relation to Anthony Mantha?
Probably.
Must be.
They are a hockey family.
And Chris, don't call me Curtis Joseph. So that's how he ended up in Pittsburgh. He was traded for a first-round pick, and a couple other guys to end up in LA, and then from LA to Detroit.
Huh. That I did not know that, Carl. You enlightened me tonight.
Yeah, and that is how the Detroit Red Wings got Paul Coffey.
Yeah, I remember him playing for them a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, 3 seasons.
But Jimmy Carson is a name I don't think I've heard before, or at least I don't remember him.
Yeah, well, and was not good after that. He was, after he was in that season where he was traded to LA, he played a total of, quick math, 108 games in the NHL after that. He was done.
Cool.
Again after.
Rough. Well, at least the Oilers got a 100-point season out of him.
He real early. And that was the core prospect. He was the second overall draft pick by the LA Kings. Started great, and a career that really did not become what anyone hoped for, especially him.
But at the time, I guess, if you're trading for Gretzky, you expect some high-end, high draft picks going back. And I guess at the time, that's what he was. He would have been one of their top prospects, top players.
He was as good as he could be. He was third in Calder voting his 18-year-old season in LA. Lost out to some guy you may have heard of, went by the name of Luc Robitaille.
I have heard of him.
That was quite the rookie pairing, Robitaille and Carson there.
No kidding. Robitaille also played for the Red Wings.
Yeah, that's this is the Red Wings trade tree now. So we've got Jimmy Carson.
Okay.
He brought Paul Coffey into this, which again brings a whole nother slew of things. Which one do you want to go down next? Martin Gélina also went to Edmonton.
Yeah.
Another player that ended up in Calgary.
That's right.
And actually, I do not believe he was, for a significant portion of time, worked with a team. However, Nick, and this is where I just get a big smile on my face, because do you know who was traded for Martin Gélina?
To the Oilers?
This was down the road. He essentially was not a whole lot of anything with the Oilers.
Okay.
But he was traded for my favorite Buffalo Sabre, Jeff Sanderson.
So here's where it comes full circle.
This is, you know what? There's only so much hockey history to get into before We're all 6 degrees from Jeff Sanderson, is what we're learning.
The hockey history lesson, 3 weeks in the making.
It's a slow burn, but we made it. This episode brought to you by Jeff Sanderson.
Jeff Sanderson and Frederick Shabbat are summer sponsors.
Yes, exactly. I'm sure that they are thrilled to be mentioned repeatedly on this show. You're welcome. So he was actually waived. That's how bad Martin Gelinas was. He was traded to Quebec and then put on waivers by Quebec, claimed by Vancouver, and then traded to Carolina for Sean Burke, Jeff Sanderson, and somebody else. Enrique Ciccone. Where's he from?
Oh, boy. I don't know. Enrique Ciccone?
Yeah.
I'm going to say he's American.
He's also from Montreal.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm serious.
I guess I could see it. It makes more sense than Mike Krushelnyski.
Yeah. This whole trade tree also is from Montreal. There's not a single trade in this tree that does not include a player from Montreal.
Except for Wayne Gretzky.
No, but there's a player in that trade from Montreal.
Oh, just a Montreal player within the trades.
Yeah, within the trade.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Every trade has to have someone.
Yeah.
Now, Marty McSorley, he went with Wayne to LA.
Yes.
And I think we all know what we know him best for.
Was that not one of Wayne's conditions?
Yes. Yeah, he wanted McSorley with him.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so he obviously was in some suspension troubles.
Of course.
He ended up having a long career moving around. He also ended up in Pittsburgh. He was traded, shockingly. Here's what's interesting. So he was traded, and again, this will bring it back in, but we now get Yari Curry in this trade tree.
Okay.
Because Yari Curry ended up in LA as well.
Yeah.
He was traded with Yari Curry to the Rangers after going to Pittsburgh and then back to LA.
These guys traded so much back in those days.
It was a fun time. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like the salary cap stifles creativity.
Almost like that, especially the hard cap.
Yeah. It's almost like a hard cap's a terrible idea. Good, get rid of it. Which brings us to the Yari Curry trade. Do you recall anything about his deal to LA?
No.
So first off, he was traded from Edmonton to Philadelphia.
Yes. I did not know that.
Okay. No, that he was traded for.
He went to Philadelphia.
He went to Philadelphia for, I guess it was a 3-way trade.
Okay.
The way that I read this, both those trades happened on the same day. So it was a 3-way trade. So 1991, what was great was this got future St. Louis Blues Stanley Cup winning coach Craig Berube in Edmonton.
Okay.
And him in LA. So that's how Craig Berube made his rounds. And now we've got another Stanley Cup winner in this mix, Craig Berube.
Interesting.
And so he ended up there, and now you've got the gang back together in LA, right? You're like, man, we've got Yari Curry, we've got Wayne. Things are going to be good. They were fine. 1991, 92, there was a lot of great things that happened down there with that team.
Yep.
Finished second in the division, lost in the playoffs that season.
Rough. But I guess kind of had to happen.
Yeah. The next season was I would say infamous. Would you say the series, the 92 series between the Leafs and the Kings? And I only know it as infamous because I know of it and I was not alive enough to care at that point in time.
I live with a Leafs fan. So yes, it is 100% an infamous.
Okay.
End to a series.
Yes. So that happened in the following season, still with Yari on the team and Wayne and Marty. So a lot of that core of that team was there. They lost that next season to Montreal. The last time a Canadian team won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, that was in the finals. And actually, Wayne Gretzky, I think, says that win against Toronto, that overtime win, is the best game he's ever played.
Yeah, I would believe it. Absolutely.
So,
and so we've gone there. Needless to say, we could literally spend hours going down this. The one that I want to look at is, again, how do you feel? And this is more of a thought. How do you feel? So there were 3 first-round picks in that trade.
Yes.
When you're looking back on these, right? This is 31 years later. Do you look back on it and evaluate the player picked with that, or no?
I don't think it's fair to, but I think it's fun to.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, and because little did the Oilers know that, well, I guess, yeah, they didn't. Because they got the trade happened in 88. They got picks in 89, 91, and 93.
Yeah.
1993 pick obviously came on the heels of some good Kings teams, 91 as well. 91 is the only player of great note, Martin Rushinsky. Another player, not from Montreal, but played in Montreal. So there's that.
Well, they've all been to Montreal at some point.
I mean, haven't we all?
Haven't we all?
But a good player as well. With a trade tree that included being in the Patrick Waugh trade.
Cool. From the Waugh trade from Montreal to Colorado?
Yeah. So because he went from he was drafted by Edmonton, then traded to Quebec for Ron Tugnutt. And then
that's a good hockey name.
Yeah. And then was traded in the trade. So he went to Montreal with Andrei Kovalenko and Jocelyn Thibault for Patrick Waugh and Mike Keane.
There you go. We managed to work the Avalanche into this trade tree too.
We've now had a Detroit Red Wings trade. We've had an Avalanche trade. We've had multiple players from Montreal, both the team and the city. I'm happy.
I finally just found an image for the Wayne Gretzky Trade Tree. This thing is insane.
Is it big?
It's massive. Is this not what you've been working off of?
No, I have literally been working my way through Hockey Reference.
Oh, Carl. I'm so sorry.
No, I did not want someone else to do the work for me, is why. I've been wanting this all to be organic. I literally clicked and opened the Wayne Gretzky Hockey Reference page, then clicked on Jimmy Carson, who was the first player listed in the trade to the Oilers, saw he was traded for Paul Coffey, and said, cool, that's where I'll start.
Well, it worked.
It did. It got us somewhere.
It got us somewhere. But this visual is unbelievable. I'll send it to you so you can have a look.
We'll put it up on the social medias.
It goes right down to Sergei Samsonov. But somehow Milan Lucic is in here.
Actually? So James Neal is now in the trade tree.
Marty. Yeah, I don't understand it. I'm going to have to look at it a little closer.
Okay. There we go, Nick. It's been a very fun 2019. And this is we tried not to pick any clips that were too recent. You remember those clips. This is us going in the way back machine to the summer, looking at what we've done this year and some of the fun that we've had with you, with the listeners. It's always fun talking to our listeners on the social media or hearing their feedback on the show. Thank you very much for listening this year. Before we wrap up, remember the Alberta Podcast Network is your place to go. And as we head into 2020, head to albertapodcastnetwork.com/events to find out all of the things happening with the Alberta Podcast Network this year. There are so many fun events happening with them. There's the Alberta Podcasting Meetup, where you're going to learn how to promote your podcast on social media. It's happening in Edmonton, simulcast in Calgary. And one thing that'll be important is, we could tune in, Nick, and find out how we could promote our podcast on social media. Maybe learn a thing or two.
I did all my learning in the summer during our hardcore hockey history.
Okay. Well, I guess Nick's done learning, but you don't have to be. So you can head to albertapodcastnetwork.com/events and find out everything over there. Thanks again for a great year. You can find us on our usual platforms. If you want to give us a Christmas gift, a lovely review would be appreciated. Say nice things about us on the internet. That'd be nice. But if you don't want to, you can just say nice things to our face or just say hi. On Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast, Facebook.com/The Fourth Line Podcast, mail at thefourthlinepodcast.com. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you next year.
Thanks, everyone. Have a very fun, safe end of 2019, and we'll see you on the flip side. Happy New Year to you.